Hello everyone! I don't know about you guys, but when I was young, I just loved using water-based markers such as Crayola or these super cheap ones that you could get at the dollar store. But then when I got a little older, I found out about alcohol-based markers such as Copics or Prismacolors. It was like this whole new world opened up to me. Does that mean that alcohol-based markers are better than water-based ones? Can you even compare those two? That is what we're gonna find out about today. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and click that little bell icon to get notified every time I post new art and videos. And while you're at it, maybe leave a like if you'd like to. So the supplies I will be working with today are from Arteza. I thought it would be most fair to compare supplies from the same brand so that they are about the same quality. First we have this huge case of 60 EverBlend art markers, and the case even comes with a shoulder strap. Ooh, and we got some color swatches, and here on the back we can read unique colors, blendable, alcohol-based ink, replaceable tips, non-toxic, and these are apparently ideal for illustrating, sketching, coloring, and crafting. Let's take a look inside. Ooh, that's some pretty colors. So this is what it looks like. It got a triangular shape to prevent it from rolling off the table, I assume, or just to make it a little more ergonomical to hold. We got a chisel tip and a bullet tip. The color code and the color name is written on both the caps, but not on the actual marker barrel. Don't think the EverBlend art markers are refillable, but they do at least sell replacement tips, so that is something at least. Then we have the Arteza 48 TwiMarkers or TwiMarkers, I guess it is TwiMarkers. Unique colors, water-based, blendable, compact, and ideal for watercolor techniques and journalings. Here we have the color selection, and it says uses doodling, calligraphy, hand lettering, planners, journaling, watercolor techniques, and note-taking. So already we can kind of see that these aren't really supposed to be used the same way as the alcohol-based markers that are mainly for illustrations. Yeah, it will be very interesting to see how different these two illustrations will be, one made with alcohol-based markers and one made with these water-based markers. Oh, these are some pretty colors. So we got a see-through barrel with the color name written on it. At one end we have a brush tip, and at the other side we have a very fine point nib. Doesn't seem like a felt tip, it is more like a plastic kind of nib. So yeah, let's swatch all of these markers, and then I'm gonna do some comparison between alcohol-based ink and water-based ink, and yeah, hopefully we will learn something new today. So yeah, we have a pretty decent color variety. Some of the swatches though looks a little weird. It looks like they haven't mixed properly, like there are two different colors in one, like this lavender one. It looks like it has pink in it, but yeah, it is very nice and vibrant colors, and we even got a colorless blender. So here we have them, lovely bright colors, and I really like the brush tip. It is very soft and nice, and also this finer point tip. Since it is a plastic nib, I feel like it can hold its shape really well, like it is very durable. Also, the links to these Arteza products is down in the description box below. They are affiliate links, so it is a really good way to get your hands on some super affordable art supplies and support me and this channel at the same time. Alright, so let's start with some tests, and then I will make one illustration with each of these mediums. So alcohol markers are known for creating nice and even colors. I'm guessing since the alcohol seeps down and spread in the paper fibers differently than water-based mediums do, it gives a more even and smooth result. I am no expert though, I'm just speaking from my own experience. Water-based ink tend to stay more on the surface of the paper. As you can see here, the alcohol-based markers bled through the paper and the water-based markers didn't, which makes water-based markers more ideal for coloring books and bullet journaling, for example, since they rarely show through the pages, not as much as alcohol markers do at least. One thing you often hear with alcohol markers is that they are blendable, that you can create smooth gradients and transitions between the colors. The water-based markers looks way more vibrant in this case, but as you can see, they don't really want to mix with each other, even when I go over them more than once. The markers also started eating and tearing the paper, which is quite typical for water-based markers, to be honest. Which brings us to layering. Alcohol markers you can pretty much layer all you want without anything happening to the paper. I am no expert, as I've already said, but maybe because the alcohol evaporates quicker, it won't saturate the paper the same way as the water-based ink does, that stays in the paper and breaks it down. Depending on what paper you're using, I'm using thick, smooth Bristol board in this case, that is more durable. You can actually layer these water-based markers quite a bit, but at some point the paper will start tearing and these little paper crumbs will stick to the pen nib. If you have used Copics or such, I am pretty sure you have used or heard of a colorless blender marker, which is basically what it sounds like, a marker with colorless ink. These are not really meant for blending the colors, it works better for smoothing out edges and stuff like that. And as you can see, it lightens up the alcohol ink like it is bleaching it kind of. However, it didn't affect the water-based markers at all. Then, using straight up water on the alcohol markers, it doesn't really affect it. Maybe some pigments are coming off, but not much at all. And that is why alcohol markers are called being permanent. But adding water to the water-based markers, it immediately dissolving the ink and makes it look like watercolors kind of. So basically what we learned from this, alcohol affects alcohol and water affects water. Which brings us to the fine liner test. Smudgy line art is the worst, so always make sure to try out your art supplies together before using them. The line marked with a W is a water-based fine liner and the P1 is a permanent or alcohol-based fine liner. The alcohol marker didn't affect the water-based fine liner that much, but the water-based marker smudged it like crazy. And yes, this is a waterproof fine liner. It works great with watercolors, but it doesn't like being rubbed with a pen nib, I suppose. Then we have the permanent fine liner. The alcohol marker doesn't affect it that much, but if we compare it to the water-based marker, the line looks a little fussier and have bled out a tiny bit in the ink. Yeah, as we have established, alcohol affects alcohol and water affects water. Then lastly, a little trick to turn your water-based markers into watercolors. Take a piece of plastic or a mixing tray and scribble with the pens on it. Then take a brush with water and use it as paint. This way you can also mix and create new colors if you want to, and I think being able to do this makes the water-based markers a little more versatile than the alcohol markers. I am pretty sure you can do this with alcohol markers too, but then you will need some kind of alcohol to mix with the ink, and alcohol evaporates so quickly, so I assume it will just make it tricky to work with. Yeah, I think it was so interesting to see the different qualities of these two art mediums. As we can already tell, they are quite different from each other. Now, finally, let's make some art so that we can really see the differences and qualities of these markers. I made a drawing of this doggo in Procreate and then I printed it on Copic paper for the alcohol markers and Bristol board for the water-based markers. So starting with the alcohol-based EverBlend markers, technique-wise, I don't really have that much to say that is new information. When I use these kinds of alcohol markers, I always start with a base color, like this dog's fur for example, and then I add shading with a darker color, obviously, and then I blend that out with the base color again. So that is basically how I work with markers: base layer, shading, then blending out the shading with the base color. So for the shading on the white parts, like the eyes and the white fur, I use the colorless blender marker to soften out the harsher lines, as I talked about before. Also, all the pinks in this marker set were very bright and saturated, so for the dog's tongue and the paws, where I wanted a more natural muted pink, I first used this very vibrant bubblegum pink, and then I toned it down with a more peachy neutral color. So that is something that you can do, layer different colors to create new ones. The blendability of the markers and the way you can layer them is why I think they are so popular for illustrating. You get smooth and vibrant colors that are easy to blend, and there's no waiting time for colors to dry and such. They are not very suitable for kids though, since the marker smells quite a bit and they are permanent, which means that you don't want them anywhere near your younger kids. I love this purple little dog though, he is so cute. Also, yeah, the dome in the background turned out a little wonky and uneven. I thought I could just freehand it, which I clearly couldn't. But yeah, here we have it. It is bright, it is colorful, the markers blended nicely, and I think it is so cute. Alright, so let's see how this illustration will look with the water-based TwiMarkers. I tried to do a watercolor wash for the fur in the beginning, but the purple was a little too light, and when diluting it with water it almost disappeared. So I ended up just drawing over the fur directly with the pen, which worked really well. The Bristol board paper I'm using can handle the markers pretty well. One thing I noticed pretty quickly is that I had to let different layers dry before going in with shading to avoid tearing the paper. The paper is more sensitive when it's wet, it feels like, so it definitely helps to let it dry before going in with even more colors. So I'm jumping back and forth between the different areas a lot more than I did with the alcohol illustration. Instead of using a blender marker to smooth out the harsher edges, I could just use water to blend it out a bit. And what I like about these markers is the fine little nib. I used it a lot to create textures, which I think added a bit more interest to the illustration, a bit more sketchy and vivid feeling. And you can do this with alcohol markers too, but it is hard to get the crisp fine line since the alcohol tend to blend together. For the grass and the background, I used the watercolor technique or method, scribbling in the mixing palette and then painting on the colors. And I think I did this with the center of the sunflowers as well and the dog's tongue, where I had to mix different colors to get new ones. And by using this watercolor technique, I could cover fairly big areas fairly easily and get a fairly smooth result. Then I could add textures and shading with the markers directly. And I really like the result, the colors really pop, so yeah, it definitely works to create illustrations with water-based markers too. You just need to use different techniques because it is technically a different medium than alcohol markers. Also, make sure to use good quality art supplies, good markers, I can really recommend these Arteza ones, and good paper, and you will have a lot more fun with your drawing, and I think that applies to every single art medium. And yes, the dome is terrible uneven here too, but we'll just have to live with that, I suppose. Alright, so here we have both of them. I like the smoothness in the alcohol illustration, but also the textures in the water-based one. I really liked how I could use different techniques with these markers. So in conclusion, I don't think we should compare alcohol-based markers with water-based markers. They are so different in so many ways. Even if they may be alike in some aspects, they do need different techniques and gives different results. So they are both good in their own way, depending on what you want to use them for. Water-based markers are definitely more kid-friendly and works better for coloring books and lettering and journaling, and alcohol markers are mainly for illustrations, but you use your art supplies the way you want. Let me know what you prefer, alcohol-based, water-based, and also let me know which of these illustrations you like the most. I hope you found this video a little interesting and informative. Thanks Arteza for the art supplies. Don't forget to check out the links in the description box below. Thanks for watching. I hope I will see you next time. Keep drawing my happy cats. Bye!